What's up, you filthy casuals? Welcome to Casual Shenanigans Tech, a podcast where myself, Jeremiah, and Dave, hey Dave,
hey guys,
we answer you guys' computer build questions, tech questions, stuff like that. We are the little brother podcast to Casual Shenanigans Gaming, so definitely go check that out, although you're probably subscribed to that podcast already if you're listening to this, because they go out in the same feed.
I don't know, could we be like the wise older brother podcast, like the knowledgeable one who's like been to college and is like giving you life tips? And
Joel's been to college. James has been to college.
Yeah, but I mean, all the tech stuff, it's a lot of wisdom dropping every month.
Okay. I
almost said every week. I was like, no, that's
every week.
That's not the case.
Sure. Okay. Oh yeah, guys, we are getting to the point. We're getting a lot of emails for tech, and it's awesome. We love helping you guys. Unfortunately, if you guys haven't quite figured out, Dave and I are usually overscheduled to a ridiculous amount between our actual jobs and then YouTube. Making this podcast happen is not the easiest thing to do schedule-wise. It's not for lack of wanting to, so we're not complaining. It's just finding some place to fit it in. If you're ever wondering how our schedules are going, just look at the last time we posted a Total War Attila episode, and that will generally give you an idea of how things are going at any given moment.
Just tonight, I gotta say it because I'm so wiped out right now. After work, I made a Home Depot trip because they own my soul. Pick up some orders for the house. Came home, ran a 5K, painted part of the office, ate dinner like literally about 45 minutes ago, which is about 10:30. And then now it's 11:15 and we're recording the tech podcast. And then hopefully I'm going to bed. Nope, I gotta paint the trim before I go to bed. Crap.
See, now tonight I did spend 3 hours watching TV with my wife, but
acceptable.
That's the first time I've gotten to do that in a while. So that was more like a making up for all the other stuff I've been stuck doing this week. So,
and only for Jeremiah would 3 hours of TV be actually on his Google Calendar, like marked out, carefully scheduled and arranged.
1 hour of that was also eating dinner with the roommates upstairs while watching TV. So I guess that doesn't, but yeah. So tonight was a rare, relaxing night for me. Minus the hour and a half I just spent putting together parts lists. Anyway, say all that to say this, not complaining at all. We love doing the show, but we might start getting to the point where we can't answer everybody's questions, and that kind of sucks if we get to that. But if that happens, we will let you know. A couple emails already. I've just sent off a really quick reply when someone has a quick question, just so we don't have to read them on the show. Not because your question's not good enough, but because sometimes it's quicker to send a one-line email than it is to talk about it for a minute or two.
Right.
So anyway, let's start the show, as we always do, with the Rig Report.
Rig Report. Dun, 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 dun.
Well, I have some stuff to talk about this week.
Get a box of tissues ready. Here come the tears.
Well, if this should hopefully be encouraging for anyone who's ever had a computer issue they couldn't quite figure out. It happens to us too. For the past month, I've been having issues. I think I talked about it on the last podcast. I mean, I could just disappear. My computer could blue screen at any point. I have no way of knowing whether or not that's going to happen.
Well, now I'm nervous.
I think I talked about it being unstable, and I backed my overclock down and everything was fine. I think that's what I said on the last podcast.
Yeah.
Things are not fine. It would be fine for like a week, and then the blue screens would start happening again. And it does this thing where it blue screens so quickly, like you can't even get back into Windows before it blue screens again, which is a problem because you do that enough times and you start getting corruption in your Windows install. So after that happening a few more times and things just going south, I thought, well, it's got to be either my Windows installation or this new SSD I put in as my boot drive, because when you're having a problem like that, you go back to your last known good configuration. So I still had my 840 Evo sitting around I hadn't done anything with. So I thought, okay, well, I don't think Windows 10 itself is the issue. Maybe just this installation of Windows 10, which I got at the same time as the SSD. Maybe that's the issue. So I went back to the Samsung 840 and I installed Windows on that. And then I just relegated the new 1TB SSD to be like an accessory drive. It's just going to hold all my games and stuff. So if there's a problem with it, I can just disconnect it and Windows is not affected and I can still work because this is my work computer. And, so I spent all day Monday backing things up. It takes a couple hours to get all my backups in a row to where I'm totally confident to just wipe the hard drive. I do run backups regularly, but like backing up my team viewer and my email and stuff like that, just making fresh copies to make sure I'm good to go. And Yeah, I spent all day doing that. It was fine for 24 hours, and then it started doing it again. And it was throwing up more errors than normal, said they were memory related. And earlier this year, I did throw another 16 gigs of memory in. So I popped that memory out. I ran a stress test all night, and it was fine. So I am now running. It's been fine for a day or so, and we're just going to see what happens. So that's where I'm at with this. Also, in other rig news, I have gotten the Potato Masher Pro's GPU. I actually bought two, as Dave knows, because there were two good sales. The graphics card sale wars have begun in the $200 and under category, and it is fantastic.
Life is good.
Life is good. So I've bought the card. I've done some preliminary tests. Obviously, the old CPU is going to be a bit of a consideration because I've already said I'm not going to be replacing the CPU. I'm just replacing the GPU for this one configuration. So I've done some tests. It's extremely positive looking. That's all I'm going to say for now. But I did a straw poll today asking people what PS4 Pro games would they like me to see, like me to make videos on, or old PC games that aren't necessarily getting PS4 Pro support. So some of these might just be videos that I'm following up with just the Potato Masher, no PS4 Pro. Overwhelmingly, the top choice was The Witcher 3: The Wild Hunt, which is not getting a PS4 Pro version officially. And then Battlefield 1, Grand Theft Auto 5, and Doom. So only one of those games is actually a PS4 Pro game. People just want to see what a faster budget PC can do. And then there's stuff spread out amongst like Call of Duty. I got 6 votes for Modern Warfare Remastered. I got 1 vote for Infinite Warfare.
Ouch.
No one cares. I've already bought it, but nobody cares. So that's what's going on with my rig. What's going on with yours?
I guess for the actual rig, not a whole lot. I was recording some Total War, the Great War mod for Napoleon a few nights ago, and you know how mods love to just crank up particle effects? Like, the developers limit you to 500 concurrent particle effects? What if we just made the whole battlefield smoky? Like, you know, it's mods. They can do what they want, right?
Right.
Sometimes there's reasons. I was getting, like, particle flickering, like those blocky artifacts on particles in heavy battle scenes in Total War. And without a restart, I was actually seeing it in stuff like, what was I playing? I think Battlefield, like distant stuff, and that would kind of flicker a bit. So restarting fixed it, and then I started noticing it in Battlefield and a few other times, just here and there, like very noticeable. It's one of those things where it artifacts so quickly, just for like a frame or two, where you're like, did I just see something, or is it just my imagination, like in my peripheral vision? So I backed my overclock down, I think like 10 megahertz, like I think from plus 160 to plus 150 on my 1080, and that appears to have done it. So hopefully Total War is not burning out my 1080 with this ridiculous particle effects. Or it could have just been like a driver issue, because I haven't run the newest drivers yet that came out a few weeks ago. It's one of those things where not a huge issue, but I'm going to keep an eye on it. Speaking of not a huge issue, your descriptions, Jeremiah, of your like horrific computer problems were actually like stressing Joel out. I mean, he just can't handle like imagining spending that time to, you know, troubleshoot and fix that stuff anymore. He was freaking out with you describing it.
Well, as I told him, it's not really a question of, it's like, if I wasn't going to be troubleshooting that, what else would I be doing? Like, I have to work on this computer. It's not like I can use a Mac. I can't use a Mac for what I do. That'd be horribly inefficient. And they break too. Yeah. Like, it's not just some weird driver thing I'm trying to figure out. This is, I'm fairly confident, a hardware issue that just hasn't broken yet.
Yeah, yeah.
So, yeah, I get it's stressful. It's certainly been stressing me out quite a lot. But it's in my best interest to fix it. So it's one of those things where it sucks, but I've got no other choice than just put my head down and keep going. Although yesterday I did leave the house and go for a drive in the Spider for a while. And it has an exhaust rattle right now, so it's just shrieking at everybody I drive past. But I'm like, I don't care.
I'm just imagining your eyelids twitching faster and faster the more it rattles.
And then I sat in my comfy chair in my office and got my laptop out and returned some work emails, because I can work on my laptop.
Yeah, yeah.
So, you know.
I guess the last thing for the rig report for me is some unexpectedly early plans, I guess, to convert my home office, which has been shared with my wife, into a whole studio for me, basically. We added a third bedroom under the house, like in the last week. We finally finished it. And, the plan was to get that all fixed up and decorated and all the furniture in there and then focus on my office, right? Well, guess who saw a freaking couch on sale this week? So now we got to move furniture around. So I'm actually podcasting right now. Do I sound kind of echoey? Like more than normal?
Not too bad over Teamspeak. I mean, it sounds all right.
There's a few bits of furniture missing from in here that have already been moved out. And because I'm repainting the walls before I finish moving furniture, my desk is like cat-a-corner in the middle of the floor with the window open to vent the hot air from the computer, and like all my screens are not right, and there's stuff everywhere, and I think I'm getting high off the paint fumes, and it's a bit of a madhouse over here. But within like the next month, I should be to the point where I'm putting down like noise cancellation foam and really getting it set up, and maybe Jeremiah getting a more permanent like tripod thing for my camera, maybe.
We'll see. I mean, I can dream. But
built a new section of the house. Well, pretty good. Tripod for the camera. Whoa. Let's not go crazy. But yeah, it's busy, but exciting things happening for sure.
Cool. Ready to answer some questions?
Let's do it.
As always, all these people have written into casualshenanigans@gmail.com. Some of them wrote in a month ago, and we're very sorry. But again, it's just we had too many questions to answer on the last episode, so some of these had to get bumped to this one. But if you have any follow-ups to anything we send you, feel free to write back to us, and we'll probably send you just a quick email reply. I kind of bust those out on lunch or whenever I've got a couple minutes to answer one.
Sure.
And Dave has not seen most of these, unless he's been reading in the folder.
I have
guess
not.
I don't know it all. All right. But some of these you will definitely have some input on. There's an SLI question in here, Dave.
Oh,
coming
boy.
up. Aren't you excited?
SLI, my favorite.
All right. Let's start with Patrick. Patrick says, "Hey there, you filthy casuals. I've only recently started listening to you all on YouTube, and it's been one of those things I've been sorely remiss for not having found sooner. I have a tech question in terms of someone whose PC gaming consisted of only a few RPG-style games like Temple of Elemental Evil, EverQuest, WoW, etc. In recent years, I've been trying to get into the PC building side of things that I might be able to run all, if not most of my games. I've never built a PC before, but I do have some basic knowledge about components and things of that nature. I plan on spending about $750 for a new PC that can last for at least the next 2 or 3 years before I need to worry about an upgrade. What I'm curious about and what I tend to run into problems with is trying to figure out what parts work together and what motherboard should I buy that will allow for the best chance to upgrade at a later date. Games I intend to play going forward will be Fallout 4 and really replacing my Xbox One with my PC. I'll never stop playing the console, but my friends won't go to PC no matter what I say, so I'll always have it. I have to say the last PC I had the last PC game I ran at full specs was Morrowind, and I have to say I really enjoyed the experience. Well, things look a lot better than Morrowind, Patrick, so
yeah, just in general.
I hope you both can help, and I look forward to your future podcast and maybe trying to give General Dave a run for his money in Fallout.
Ooh, bring it.
Keep it casual.
A challenger.
And I believe Patrick is also a Patreon supporter, so thank you very much, Patrick.
Nice.
So here's the build I've put together for him, and I will explain my idea for the upgrade path. It has a i3-6100 Skylake dual-core, hyper-threaded dual-core processor, MSI Z170 motherboard, 16 gigs of G.Skill Ripjaws RAM, a 240 gig Kingston SSD, 1 terabyte Western Digital Caviar Blue hard drive, GTX 1060 6 gigabyte, a Thermaltake case, and a EVGA bronze certified power supply. It comes out to $744. So my thought is the 1060 is going to do awesome right now. I can play pretty much every game at 1080p, pretty much maxed out without any problems, except for a couple outliers. The i3-6100 is going to be okay in pretty much everything. It's going to have trouble in a couple games, but it has 4 processing threads. It really should be fine in everything he plays. And then, in a couple years, Patrick, when you need a CPU upgrade, you can just buy a used i5-6500 or 6600K or whatever. Even if you don't overclock it, it'll be a nice little upgrade. If you do want to overclock it, this motherboard will be a great overclocking motherboard. So we could save you some money on your RAM. We could save you some money on your motherboard, and we could get you a quad core now. So if you want write back and let me know, and I will send you back a tweaked version of this, because I could shave a couple bucks off your case, a couple bucks off your SSD, a couple bucks off your RAM, and we could get you into a basic quad core now, or you can buy slightly nicer versions of all of those now and ride that CPU longer and upgrade the CPU while keeping the rest of your socket. If the potato masher teaches you anything, it's that you can actually keep a CPU way longer than most people think, and it's perfectly fine. Not super high end, but fine. So, Dave, do you have any thoughts on that?
Yeah, I agree with maybe possibly pushing it to the actual quad core. The dual core with 4 threads is a good stand-in, like you said, but for future proofing, it's always best to go for the real thing, if you can.
Okay. So, Patrick, you let us know. If you want, I will send you back a tweaked build that has that. But either way, this is going to be a good build. So, and also, actually, a big way we could save you some money is the 1060 6GB, $240. They have been on sale for cheaper than that. But also, there have been 480s going for like 180, 190 on sale. I've seen a 1060 3GB model going for 165 on Jet. So there's some awesome deals out there. If you keep an eye on r/build-a-PC sales, we could definitely get you into a quad core if you're willing to put a little time in and you're willing to grab a couple deals. So you let me know and we'll see what we can do. Our next question comes from Adam. Hey there, you filthy casuals. You filthy casuals. I enjoy your shows tremendously and want to congratulate you on your success. Thanks, man. I already have a terrific gaming PC running Windows 10. I'm a big fan of Steam and have various Steam controllers and a Steam Link, and everything runs hunky-dory. The gaming PC is in the home office, and my wife sometimes uses it for her work, which involves 3D rendering. When she's on it, I'm DOA for gaming since the other systems are laptops that aren't suitable for gaming. As an enthusiast project, I want to build a SteamOS box in an HTPC case. I don't need a monitor or accessories, just the computer. I need for it to be in an HTPC case so it can sit by the TV, and I need both a fast Ethernet and Wi-Fi connectivity via a PCI connection rather than USB, because I'll need to connect this via both wired and wireless connections for various reasons. I figure that when my wife is using our performance machine, I can play on the Steam box either in the living room or stream it up to the bedroom. Beyond this, SteamOS games tend to be a little older, so I don't need top specs. Like I said, I'm looking to game at 1080p and want the best possible performance for $500. The challenge here is getting this to fit into HTPC case and ultimately getting SteamOS to work. Thanks in advance for your help, Adam. So, Dave, do you know a couple issues right off the bat, or a couple challenges we're going to have right off the bat based on what this is?
First of all, I understand that 3D rendering life, so you have my sympathy. A couple of challenges, huh? Well, I'd imagine the network cards on that size case are going to be fun to work with.
Not just that, but SteamOS is Linux.
Oh.
So yeah, Dave understands now.
Eyes widen.
Yeah, so I guess the first question I would ask is, why does he want a PCI wireless card? I don't know what the fundamental difference between a PCI wireless card and a USB wireless card is for his purposes, because you can use either or and alternate between that and a wired connection. Like, there's no real difference as far as I'm aware. I Googled that for SteamOS and I don't see anyone talking about any issues there either, but I honestly don't know. But the problem there, Dave, is finding a Wi-Fi adapter that is compatible with SteamOS. And I'm going to send him a couple links. I found a couple Reddit threads that might be helpful. One guy was recommending this Monoprice USB one, and then someone else said they found a PCI Express one that works. But the thing with Linux, anything, is people are going to go, oh, yeah, you just got to use these drivers for this different thing. They do work for this device, even though it doesn't say it does. And this comes with SteamOS. So, Adam, I think we should say we're not experts on getting Wi-Fi to work with Linux.
Yeah.
So that's the only part of this build I'm not 100% sure on. You may have your work cut out for you, but I will send you links to the threads I found so we can all talk about it together. But it seems like some of those people in there possibly have figured it out. It makes sense on paper. I've just never done it. So take that with a grain of salt. Also, worth keeping in mind, if you need a wireless connection, you could always use a Wi-Fi bridge. Have you ever done that, Dave?
No.
Well, that's true. You were on like a wireless G router up until a couple years ago because you don't really use Wi-Fi. So
yeah, not at all.
A Wi-Fi bridge is really just taking another router or extender or something like that and wiring it up to act like an antenna. So you plug it into the Ethernet port on your computer, and then it acts as your antenna, and your computer doesn't know it's not on a wired connection.
Gotcha.
It's really just a way of very inefficiently creating a large antenna.
Yeah.
So here's the build anyway, a SteamOS compatible build. Oh, there's another problem, Dave. He says HTPC case. HTPC cases, all of them except for one that I used back in the day, all the ones I found are either huge or they're nice and sleek and sexy and they have half-height graphics card slots, which is a problem.
Yes, definitely.
So the case I've picked out is not an HTPC case, Adam. It is a regular micro ATX mini tower case. It is a small case. It's a case you could lay on its side if it fits in your home theater center. Like, there's no reason you can't use this like a home theater case, but if you really want one of those cases, you're going to be stuck with the GTX 750 Ti. That is the fastest card that is offered in a half-height design. I'm sure the GTX 1050 and 1050 Ti are going to get half-height versions at some point, and then at that point, they're pretty decent cards, but they don't have them right now. So with all those caveats in mind, for the price of, with shipping, of $499.77.
There it is.
An i3 6100 with the stock cooler, an ASRock H110 micro ATX motherboard, 8 gigs of Crucial RAM, a Western Digital Caviar Blue 1TB hard drive, an RX 470, XFX RX 470 graphics card, and the same EVGA 430 watt power supply that is in the potato masher. Really great budget power supply. So all of that will work. That does not include your Wi-Fi, so that will bump it up slightly above that, but I wanted you to look at your options and kind of decide what you want to do. And if you get a sale on a graphics card, you can drop below it without a problem. But what do you think, Dave, specifically about the whole HTPC thing?
I mean, it adds a lot of extra challenge to the build, but
fun challenge.
Yeah.
But I don't know if it's going to be worthwhile because it'll be slow.
Yeah.
Anything else to go with that? I mean, I guess
Nope.
I don't really have anything to say about
That was the period on the end of the sentence. That was it. I agree,
I mean, it's one of those things. Let us know if you want to make any adjustments, and we'll see what we can do. This next one's really interesting. Chris says, "What's up, guys? I recently upgraded from 2 GTX 970s and SLI to an EVGA GTX 1080 for the win. After installing the card, I ran some Firestrike benchmarks. To my disappointment, the new card did not raise my score as much as I thought. It went from 15,578 to 15,873. After a bit of digging, I realized my CPU was not scoring well on the physics test, not the PhysX test, but the actual CPU physics test, which was bringing down my combined score. However, on the graphics test alone, the two 970s scored 22,623 and the 1080 scored 23,535. I was assuming the gap would be a bit more. Is this something to do with the Firestrike test itself, the particular card, the two 970s being that powerful, or is it my rig as a whole? I've noticed that games like Rainbow Six Siege and Elite Dangerous sustain above 100 FPS easier, and I can turn on 2x super sampling for my Vive." He has the HTC Vive. "I look forward to your thoughts. Keep up the good work, Chris. P.S. I left the second 970 in there as a PhysX card since Killing Floor 2 uses PhysX." So the rest of his build is an i7 4790, not a 4790K, just a 4790, which is actually slower. So my 4790K is 4 gigahertz that can turbo to 4.4. This is the 4790 non-K is 3.6 gigahertz. He has 16 gigs of RAM. He has a GTX 1080. He's got a bunch of drives. So, Dave, we have both had 970 SLIs.
Yes, we have.
We both upgraded to 980 Ti's, which are about 25% slower than a 1080, and then you upgraded to a 1080.
Yes.
From your experience, is your 1080 faster than your 970 SLI in real-world scenarios?
Then the 970 SLI?
Yes.
Again, I had the Ti before this, so I haven't had the SLI for a while. I'd say it's at least comparable. One thing that the 970 SLI could do is crank out raw frames. In games like Witcher 3, like where it was just single player, and it could just, crank the frames out. It did amazing. It was fantastic. So for raw performance, the 970s did great. It's honestly hard to compare them because they were so long ago, and the overall experience with the 1080 is just so much more straightforward. Like there's no flickering screen issues, there's no driver, check to see if it's been disabled. There's no, oh hey, most games don't have SLI support anymore issues. There's no, I can't run the game in a window issues. Like, the experience is so much better that it's honestly hard to compare just the performance. I think his scores sound about right. What do you think?
I think they sound about right, but I think what's telling is that there are synthetic benchmarks. And it's kind of why I don't really trust synthetic benchmarks. They can tell you if you've made an improvement in your system a lot of the time. But as we've talked about so many times with SLI, on paper, SLI is great. In the real world, SLI is either pretty good or just doesn't work or is terrible.
Yeah.
There's a wide range of SLI experiences. So synthetic benchmarks tend to do pretty well with SLI, but it's a synthetic benchmark. In my experience, going from two 970s to a single 980 Ti, I think in real world performance, it matched or exceeded the 970s in pretty much everything. Not in theoretical peak performance or the absolute peak frames I could see in something, but just day-to-day plain average games I checked out, I think my 980 Ti is at least equivalent. And of course, there's all the issues like you talked about that I'm just not having anymore. It actually just works well.
Yeah.
So my thought is, you're saying that Elite Dangerous and Rainbow Six Siege seem to be running better. That sounds about right. Mm-hmm. I would trust actual in-game results more than the synthetic benchmarks. And there are other synthetic benchmarks you can run if you want to see more of the difference. There are probably some that are less, they don't have the SLI scaling quite as efficient and everything else. But 3D Mark is pretty good about that. And which makes sense because people use that to benchmark and compete against each other with their systems. But that doesn't necessarily tell you how your system's going to do in actual games. So if you're having a better experience in games with your 1080, and you really should be as far as I can tell,
oh yeah,
then I wouldn't worry about it. I mean, that's... Your CPU, I think, is fine. Is it going to bottleneck it every once in a while? Yeah, possibly. But that's still a great CPU. Mm-hmm. I don't think it's really slowing you down that much. You've got an awesome card. You've got an awesome CPU. You really have a pretty good setup. I would not be tempted to go back to SLI if I were you. Obviously, that's your choice.
Yeah,
not that he'd go back to his 970s, but like getting a second 1080 or something. I mean, I think you're always better off just buying the single fastest card.
I agree. As we've both learned.
Yeah, like in case you haven't heard us say this before, Chris, I've had 9600 GT SLI, and then I went AMD, and then later I had a Radeon 7950 Crossfire. Then I had, I'm skipping a lot of single cards in between here. Then I had 970 SLI, and I really don't think I'll ever go back to a double card solution. And I think I definitely made the right choice going to a 980 Ti from the 970s. So,
I mean, the experience alone, just the smoothness and the lack of worrying about it, was probably worth the price premium to get it early and just enjoy it.
Yeah, I think so. Although one of the barriers to SLI has started going away, heat and power consumption. Modern cards are getting so power efficient that that's starting to look pretty decent on paper, because with a 500 watt power supply, you can safely run quite a few of these cards in SLI, but that doesn't really get rid of all the other issues. So
yeah, and I think there's a chance in the future as, like, say, DirectX 12 becomes a standard and completely changes how SLI works, where the graphics drivers are having to do a lot less of the heavy lifting. SLI, like 3 or 4 years from now, could be a totally different scenario. But for now,
it could be.
Would not recommend.
Yeah, it could be, but honestly, I don't think it will be.
I say it could be because kind of like what we've seen with laptop GPUs this year, there's some big leaps happening where it's not just more performance, it's different kinds of performance.
Yeah, for sure.
And for SLI, that's what it needs. It needs different kinds of architecture to make it work. What they have is a house of cards held up, by someone that's got the shakes. It's not great.
Yeah. Up next is Christian. He wrote in from Australia last episode. If you remember, he had the $1,500 or $1,600 Australian budget, and we gave him a build, and he wrote back and said, "Hello everyone, Christian again. I already have a keyboard and mouse and student copy of Windows 10, and I do plan on plugging it into a TV. So he actually had a lot of the
Nice.
stuff we were asking about in his budget before. He said, with the additional budget, I've been looking into motherboards with Wi-Fi, and I've also added a Cyrotech C7 CPU cooler, and I don't mind not having an SSD if needed for additional funds and other parts. Buying pre-owned is next to impossible as he lives in rural NSW. I don't know what NSW means, but I'm guessing it's the boonies of Australia. So that's his deal.
Yeah.
And he sent us back a modified list. So let me read. Hold on, I'm bringing up some stuff. Let me read the list we sent to him. We sent him an i5 6500, Asus B150 motherboard, 16 gigs of Crucial RAM, Kingston 240 gig SSD, Seagate 2 terabyte internal hard drive, GTX 1066 gigabyte, Silverstone case, Silverstone 500 watt gold power supply, and then we had Windows 10, a monitor, keyboard, and mouse, none of which he needs. So he wrote back and modified it, kept the i5 6500, got a CyroRig C7 CPU cooler. It's a thin, quiet CPU cooler. I stepped up to an MSI B150 motherboard with wireless AC internet. The same Crucial RAM, Seagate 2 terabyte hard drive, dropped the SSD, same GPU. He changed the Silverstone Suzhou SG13B mini ITX case, and then a Corsair CXM 450 watt semi-modular power supply. So I have a couple issues with the list he sent us.
Mm-hmm.
The first one being, I don't know why I sent him RAM that was DDR4 2133. That's too slow for good gaming DDR4 RAM, so I'm sorry about that. But my next thing is, for this budget, Dave, I think he needs an SSD. I know he says he doesn't mind, but we're going to push for SSD again. If he says no, I think we'll let it be.
It's a big difference. I mean, we've talked about
really
SSDs before, where it's, you know, kind of like the possibility of SLI changing completely. It's a huge shift for hard drives. It's the last part of your computer that has moving parts is a mechanical hard drive. An SSD is a experience changer. It makes your computer feel like it can actually keep up with you, basically.
But if you really don't want it, that is okay. Don't worry.
Now that we've hyped it up.
Here's how I've modified his list again. I added an SSD back in. Don't you get cheeky on me. I switched out the RAM for G.Skill DDR4 3000 megahertz RAM, 16 gigs. Same hard drive, although on his list it didn't have a price anymore, which artificially lowered the price of that whole build. Kept his case, kept that same GPU. Now, that power supply, this is not the place to cheap out on your power supply here. That Corsair CX, it's not terrible. We've talked about this one before, I think. It's Corsair's newer power supplies. They're not bad for budget builds. You don't have that budget of a build, I would get a nicer power supply.
Yes, I agree.
put a Thermaltake Tough Power 80 plus gold 550 watt semi-modular in there just for Dave.
Yeah, Thermaltake. Yeah,
and
semi-modular.
And that brings his total out to $1,363 Australian dollars.
Not bad.
So if he does want to spend $1,500 or $1,600, Dave, I mean, what do you think? Just grab a GTX 1070 or something?
For more money, I would say bigger SSD, better GPU. 1070 should do it. i5 6600 maybe?
Maybe. I mean, I wouldn't get just the 6600. If he's going to step up, I'd go to the 6600K.
Oh, right. Yeah. Man. Okay, this is bad. I don't think of CPUs other than like the actual K ones.
Me too.
Yeah,
me too. I don't really know about the non-K variants. I have to go look them up every time.
I had to think about what you were saying for a second. I'm like, oh, of course it would be the K. Why would? Oh, right. There's other ones.
I say that, but I'm a stock speed scrub right now.
Oh.
As soon as I find out what's actually wrong and I get it fixed, you better believe the overclock's going back on. But honestly, it's performing pretty well.
Jeremiah, remember how you made fun of me for my 4.1 gigahertz overclock? Oh, yeah. At least I have one.
I mean, my processor's still faster, but whatever.
How many cores you got over there?
It's not about the number, it's about the girth of the cores. The individual cores.
My cores will blot out the sun.
All right. Up next is Dan. Dan says, "Hi guys, love the show and all the advice offered. Thank you, Dan. I'm writing in because I need your wisdom on a new or upgraded PC. I'm not a competitive gamer, Instead, I love immersion and single-player experiences. Here's my current aging setup. Okay, Dan, you liar. I'm not a competitive gamer. I love immersion and single-player, and you have an 144 hertz 1080p monitor. Sure, Dan, we believe you. He just didn't want to say, I've got a CSGO problem and I need help.
Yeah. I'm very immersed when I'm teabagging someone with my golden deagle.
He also has an AMD FX 6300 hexacore, a 2GB GTX 660, 8 gigs of RAM, a Gigabyte 970 UD3P motherboard with a 500 watt power supply, which is the exact same motherboard I used to have, I believe. And he is running that on Windows 10. He says, I realize my graphics card is old, but I've gotten a great deal of mileage out of it, and it's been incredibly reliable to me, which is why it took this long to upgrade. If I can use any of these parts for a new setup, then great. Otherwise, I'm prepared to buy a new rig if I have to. I want to be able to play most games on high settings at a constant 60 FPS. After having bought PlayStation VR, the world of VR has won me over, so in the future I'd like to be able to use VR headset to experience games comfortably as well.
Nice.
I have not decided between the Oculus or the Vive. I'm willing to spend about £1,000, and I don't mind starting from scratch if need be. Thanks, guys. You're awesome. Keep it up. So, here is what I've got in mind for him. I'm thinking, he doesn't say what type of 500 watt power supply he has. Let's assume his power supply is fine and he does not need to replace it. If you're not sure, Dan, let us know what power supply you have and we will tell you. Let's also assume his case is fine and we can reuse that. Because Dave, for less than £1,000 for 951 pounds shipped, here's the type of build Dan's looking at.
Ooh,
right
I'm
now.
opening the link right now.
An i5 6600K, a Cooler Master Hyper 212, an MSI Z170 motherboard, a Corsair Vengeance 16 gigs of RAM, a Samsung 850 EVO 250 gig SSD, a 1TB Western Digital Caviar Blue, and a Gigabyte GTX 1070 video card.
That's a solid PC right there.
That is going to crush 1080p.
That hits all the right notes.
Now, Dan, if you wanted to trade some of this budget in and move up to a 1440p screen or something, that could be awesome too. If you're happy with your current screen, though, you don't need to. I mean, that's totally a preference thing. From what I've heard from a lot of people is once you go 144 hertz, you never go back, and I kind of want to do that myself. So to get a good 1440p screen, it's going to be at least a couple $100. It's going to cut down how fast the rest of this build is. If you're happy with your monitor, keep it. But what do you think about the rest, Dave?
Seeing we have just a bit of wiggle room in the budget, I would say go for a 2TB hard drive.
Possibly. I left that open. That could be a better power supply. That could be a different case. That could be more storage. You know, that could be a 500 gig
That's
SSD
true. I mean,
if you wanted it.
We don't know the power supply, so that could be, you know, a requirement. But I think the hard drive is the only thing that stands out to me, just because I know 1TB to me feels anemic these days.
Yeah.
But
well, he didn't say what storage drives he has too, so maybe he can reuse some of those. You never know.
Yeah, well, okay, so here's one of my things. Whenever I do my like 3 or 4 year like full-on motherboard, RAM, CPU upgrades, I also retire all of my hard drives just because I'm nervous like that. You don't need to, but at least my 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 primary say my photography drive that has all my video and photos on it, I'll swap that one for a new generation one. Just me though, because I just figure after 3 or 4 years at least of running a lot for at least my main storage drive, I don't want to take the chance and I'll swap it.
Typically, I just upgrade. Like, I don't have to do that after a few years. I just wait till it's full, and then by that point, I just buy whatever is double the size and keep going. I'm down to 300 gigs free on my 4TB internal storage drive.
I'm in the same boat.
I think a couple hundred gigs of that could be freed up, though. So I think, yeah. But anyway. He could also save probably about $20 from what I was looking at if you went with a not as good 1070, but this one should be a really good overclocker. So there's definitely room. You could go down to 8 gigs of RAM if you don't need 16 now. And if you're really just gaming, you don't need 16 yet. So there's room in here. You want to wiggle one way or the other, let us know. I don't think this gets you into a 1080, but I'm telling you, a 1070 is going to destroy a 1080p monitor.
Oh,
I mean,
yeah.
There's some games you won't be at 144 hertz at on max settings, but the vast majority of games you should do very, very well at. So.
Absolutely.
Anything else on that one?
No, that's very solid.
Yeah, he got a pretty decent budget, pretty reasonable requests. and you can kill it. You could also spend less than that and have a huge upgrade as well. Just to put it in perspective, that 1070 is probably like 4 times
but hey,
faster than
look,
that 660.
You give CSG Tech a budget, we're going to use that budget.
We use every dime. Yeah, it's at least 3 or 4 times faster than the rig you're using now. So it's up to you how big of an upgrade you want, but that would kill it. So Frankie wrote in and said, "Hi to the almighty tall one and the RPG hoarder." I don't know which one is which.
Yeah, it's confusing, honestly.
"I'm a secondary school student in the UK. That's high school for anyone who doesn't know. I didn't know. And I've just started planning and getting the parts for my first personal PC." "You mean first PC, Frankie? Because PC stands for personal computer?"
Thanks, Dad.
Now, here's my one quick question. If I buy a Windows 10 OEM license and I upgrade my motherboard, do I need to rebuy that license? I've done various bits of research online, but none of it, replies in forums, etc., have been that clear, or have actually answered the question with various conflicting answers across different sites. P.S. Love the podcast and the Potato Masher, but my favorite is the CS Tech episodes. I would love to say I listen every week, but I can never quite manage to make it. That's cool, man. Don't worry about it. We don't record that often. So, Dave, Windows 10 OEM licenses specifically. So with Windows 10, if you have the anniversary update, it is now tied to your Microsoft account. Like, I reinstalled Windows on Monday. I did not have to activate Windows, or I just said, I don't have a serial key. And it said, okay. And then as soon as I got into Windows and signed into my account, it said, you're activated.
Yeah.
You're good.
Honestly, I've done 3 Windows 10 installs, and outside of one of them having to be a reinstall from a Windows 10 update that killed it, the activation process is wonderfully smooth. It's fantastic. It's easy. You don't think about it. It just works.
Now, Windows 10 OEM licenses.
Yes.
I feel like we probably ought to say, Frankie, you're not technically supposed to buy an OEM license. That's supposed to be for a system builder who is putting it on a PC and selling it to someone else. Why they sell them in every store and there's no barrier of entry and anyone can buy them, I've never quite understood. I don't know if it's a nudge, nudge, wink, wink, this is for OEMs only, or if Microsoft really means it. So I don't honestly know if that new Windows Anniversary update has the same feature for OEM licenses. I cannot answer that question for you.
I believe it does. And I think, again,
it should. And this is one of those things with the OEM licenses. They've always been very good. If you call them and go, it's not working, they're always very good about giving you, like, about fixing it for you. I mean, they don't, as long as you actually paid money for Windows, Microsoft's generally pretty cool about it.
Yeah, I'm going to go off the cuff here because I don't have the exact statement or policy in front of me. But from what I have heard, the OEM policy for Windows 10 is still you cannot transfer the license. But if you call us, we'll help you transfer the license. Like, you're not supposed to, but they will, basically.
Same thing like, the Windows 10 free upgrades over. I got a new build up and running for a friend of mine on Windows 7 because that's the old one of my old licenses I had laying around. And I got into it and I opened up Internet Explorer to go get Chrome, the first thing you do. Mm-hmm. And it opened up some page and went, the Windows 10 free upgrade is over. There's a button right below it. Get Windows 10 for free. I said, okay. I clicked on it just out of curiosity, and you could totally just get it for free. They still offer free upgrades for anybody who needs like the ease of access tools, like disability issues, anything like that. But really, all you had to do was click a box that says, yep, I still need this, and somehow didn't get it in the 1 year it was available, and they'll just give it to you.
What a terrible scare tactic. They're like holding out to you like, oh, sorry, can't give this to you, but unless you want it. Do you want it?
Which, I mean, they went straight malware. Like the scummy techniques they use to get people to update to Windows 10, I'm honestly pretty pissed about. Like, I think they should just be ashamed of themselves how they handled that. But generally the activation process is pretty easy. So, there you go. Take it all with a grain of salt. But if you're in school, check to see if you can get a discounted school copy first and see if there's a price difference. If it's only like $5 between OEM and a regular box copy where you live, just get the box copy. I don't know what the price difference is like in the UK. Sometimes it's like a $50 or $60 difference. But yeah, generally, as long as you actually paid for it, it's one of those things where under Microsoft's rules, it's maybe a tiny bit sketchy, but I think ethically, like you can have a very clear conscience. You're paying for a copy of Windows that you're not intending to make copies of or distribute or circumvent their rules. You just want to be able to like upgrade your hardware in the future.
Yeah.
And that's very reasonable. All right. Up next is Forrest. Forrest says, "Hey, Jeremiah and Dave. So my dad's been a casual photographer with the talent and skill of a professional for years, and now he's trying to pursue it as a career. He bought a really nice camera and has set up a studio in his basement. Unfortunately, he's an Apple fanboy and has been using the same iMac for the last 8 years, and he hasn't upgraded because he can't afford the exorbitant Apple prices for a new iMac. At this point, he's basically driving a car with flat tires.
Ugh.
He's getting to his destination, but it's a rough and unenjoyable experience. So I'm looking to build him a budget but quality PC that will be used pretty much exclusively for Photoshop. It doesn't need to be top of the line, but I'd like to get him at least 5 years of quality use out of it without upgrading, and I would like for him to be able to jump into 4K photo editing in the next couple years as his business expands. Forrest, as another photographer, I feel like I need to jump in right here and say his camera is probably already 4K. I mean, not for video, but for pictures. We're probably already past that. Mm-hmm. So when it comes to handling photo sizes, that's actually not nearly as much of a problem as it is handling 4K resolution for video. That's a lot more demanding. But he goes on to say, I would want the build to be as close to $400 as possible, but I'm willing to go as high as $500 if I need to. Guys, you need to learn this lesson. If you say I have budget X, but I can spend X plus Y, we're going to spend X plus Y. We don't care about what you say your budget is. We care about what you're willing to spend.
I've already forgotten the original budget. What was that? That's gone now.
we're like scummy used car salesmen. How much can you afford per month? He says, I have a cheap Radeon GPU I could throw in there, but I don't know if that would be enough. I really have no experience with how demanding Photoshop is. Also, the smaller the tower, the better, and overclocking is not an option. Thanks for your help. Love what you guys do. So, Dave, in my opinion, this is one of those scenarios where building a computer is not the best solution for a couple reasons. And I'm curious to get your thoughts on this.
I'm in shock right now, honestly.
He wants it to be easy. Mm-hmm. Overclocking's not an option. Mm-hmm. He wants it to last for like 5 years or so without upgrading. Presumably he needs Windows. And he wants it to be decently fast. So for $400 to $500, can you do all that? Yeah. But you know you're going to have to make a couple compromises somewhere. And if something goes wrong, he is going to have to learn how to fix this himself. Like, that's just how it's going to go. None of that's a problem, as long as Forrest is willing to do that. But I'm saying, I think there's possibly a better way to do this, given his dad's unique situation, especially because he's not gaming with it.
Right, for sure.
So first thing I'll say is for Photoshop, you don't need a GPU. I've used computers with and without them. You need a decent amount of RAM, and a GPU can help with certain effects, but is by no means absolutely necessary. So my suggestion is to go to the Lenovo outlet, outlet.lenovo.com. I have 3 links I've prepared. 2 of them are not loading right now because their website's actually kind of slow. But there are pre-builts, very attractive pre-builts in your price range that are, some of them are refurbished, some of them are open box. There's a bunch of stuff on there. Like, by the time I send you this email, honestly, these all might be out of stock. But if you just go there and you look through what they have, you can easily sort by what you want, and you should be able to find something. So here's an example, Dave. Here's a Lenovo ThinkCentre M900 tower. Not a super huge, just a mid tower. It is $450.99. It has a i5 6600 non-K, Windows 10 Home 64, a GeForce GT 720, 4 gigabytes of DDR4 RAM, a 1 terabyte hard drive, and a 1-year warranty.
How much RAM was that?
4 gigs. Now, but if he buys that and throws in another 4 or 8 gigs, it'll be under $500, and he'll have a Skylake quad-core, Windows 10, a terabyte hard drive with a warranty. I mean, that you can't, I could not build something better than that.
If you don't void the warranty by installing RAM.
It shouldn't, no. The warranty should only be on things that you actually modify yourself. Should. But I have some other options here as well. Here's a cheaper option for $377. Here's an Idea Center 300. It has an i5 6400, Windows 10 Home 64, integrated Intel graphics, the same 4 gigs of RAM, the same 1 terabyte hard drive, comes with a mouse and keyboard, has wireless internet, and a 1-year warranty. So if he bought that for $377, he could replace all the RAM with like 16 gigs, and he would have spent like $450.
That's pretty good. That's
pretty good. And I've got one more. Not that he needs more choices, but This is $393. It's a Lenovo H50. As an i5 4460. So that's a last generation quad-core, but still, I mean, for Photoshop, it's not going to make that big of a difference. Windows 10 Home 64, Intel HD graphics, 8 gigabytes of DDR3 RAM, same 1 terabyte hard drive. It has no wire. It does have wireless. Yeah, okay, it does have wireless and Bluetooth built in. And it has a USB mouse and keyboard. $393. That doesn't need any upgrades. That has enough RAM to be used right now.
Yeah.
So, I mean, do you think for $400 could you beat that computer?
I don't think so, honestly.
I mean, you could get some higher quality parts, and that's where this gets a little bit dicey. Is like, I know we could build a computer with higher quality RAM or higher quality power supply, yada yada yada. But for what he wants to do, I honestly don't know that it matters. And if he wants to spend some extra money, he could add a boot SSD to make things a little bit snappier. He could do other stuff if he wants to upgrade. More RAM, more storage, whatever. But for the price, I think this is all I do. It's just this.
I agree. That's a great option.
Now, if these are sold out, Forrest, just go back to desktops. There's a link at the top of one of these links. You know, there's a link to that part of the site. And you can just go... look at all the other ones there. Just sort by like i5, i7s, decent amount of RAM.
Because it'll
You'll see
change
some cool
some, for
stuff.
sure.
Now, Dave, our last question tonight. Do you remember Grant wrote into the last episode and he was asking what should he do to turn on his PC after it's been sitting in storage for 2 months?
Oh, yeah.
Well, Grant has written back with an epic tale.
Oh, no. What do we do?
Hey, CSG crew, incoming long email here. It's not bad.
Okay.
I'll just start out by saying that. That's me saying that, not him. Today, I write to you with my build log and the wonderful experience of building my own PC for the first time. I want to start out by saying thank you for everything you guys do. Thanks, man. Your podcast is truly a great thing as I listen to it every day on my commute to school. Not to mention the podcast is my main source of gaming and computer news. But anyways, I emailed you last year about my build for about $450, and you guys suggested me a pretty solid rig, but I never ended up building it. Instead, I bought a PS4. I'm very sorry if you're disappointed in my choice, but it was well worth it. I mean, we both own PS4s, so no problem. I own 2 PS4s.
Still, that's a left turn for this email.
About the same time next year, I used that same build plus another $200 to make it even better. It was also the same time the RX 480 came out, so I desperately wanted it, but they were sold out everywhere, so I went with the 380X instead. When I finally got all my parts, I had my best friend come over and build it with me. It was such a fun experience, staying long into the night tinkering with my newly built system. I didn't have the OS yet, so we just played in the BIOS for a while.
That's sad.
That's the total, like, I just got my new Windows 98 PC. Oh, look, there's this demo disc where you can ride the dirt bike around. Do you remember that?
Nope.
It's like, oh, yeah, that was a demo disc on some versions of Windows 98. Like, they had a couple demos on the disc. And there was one where you literally just ride a dirt bike around
Immersive.
outside. So we thought for whatever reason that Walmart might have a Windows key. Looking back, I have no idea why I would have ever even thought that. I think some of them do sell Windows, but don't quote me because I don't go to the software section.
Yeah.
So when we didn't find the key, I asked the worker where we could get one. Once again, I'm not sure why this guy would ever come through for us, but for whatever reason, I thought that. I specifically asked him for a copy of the Windows 10 key. He, who also happened to have half his teeth missing, asked if I was, quote, looking for a laptop, as he had a blank stare on his face. Me and my friend decided there was no way we were going to get that Windows copy tonight. I asked the same guy a little bit later if he had a USB Wi-Fi adapter so I could use internet on my PC. He then led us to the portable Western Digital hard drives.
Oh, perfect. Just download a local copy of the internet, and then you're set to your hard drive. It's perfect.
It hit me that then this guy had no idea about anything, which I suppose is why he was working at Walmart. I mean no offense to anyone by saying that other than offense to that man. It was the next day that I actually got Windows 10 from Best Buy. Having this PC is a glorious thing, especially coming from a laptop with an i3 and littered with junk files and viruses. Well, don't screw up this one either then, man.
Yeah.
We were actually moving a week or two after I built the PC, so it was going to have to go into storage for a long while. Here we have presumably caught up to our previous email. We were actually building our new house, and I had to help with some of the process, insulation, building stairs, and painting. A lot of the things Dave has been doing to his house. While the house was being built, we had to live somewhere in a camper. Jeremiah, I know you lived in a camper once. Not sure if you enjoyed it, but I sure as hell didn't.
Jeremiah, he's living her life.
Living in that thing with 4 people and a dog is a nightmare for 2 months even. Here's the difference. We had 2 people and we did not have a dog.
Yeah.
So yes, that does sound like a terrible experience, because the worst part about living in the camper is you can't get away from each other. And I know that sounds bad. I love my wife, but it's just a practical thing. Like, if one of you gets up in the middle of the night or goes to make food or whatever, you are in each other's way constantly. So 4 people and a dog, yeah, that sounds bad. Although we were in ours for 21 months. So by the end, we were pretty done too. 2 winters, and that was enough. That was enough winters. 2 winters and 2 hurricane seasons, and we were ready to get out of there.
Do campers actually have insulation?
I haven't told you these stories about how we tried to keep it cool and warm.
Oh, I mean, I've heard the overall stories, just from a technical perspective. I guess
they do technically have insulation, but it's very, very thin insulation.
It's that foam stuff, isn't it? Like the foam sheets.
Yeah, and our to the top AC could not keep up with the summer heat, so we had to put blankets over all the windows tucked in, and we had to get a second window unit and mount it in the back and run a separate electrical line just for that. And then the winter, we had to use gas heat, which actually was great. Gas heat is awesome, except for the night when the gas heat went out and all the heat just drained out of that thing. We ran one tiny electric heater in our bedroom with blankets piled up against the door, blankets on the bed, and us cuddled up against each other just shivering. It was like in the low 60s in our room when we woke up, and it was in the 40s in the rest of the camper.
Okay, so I have to chime in with my version of this real quick. When we first moved in,
Dave didn't have a roof. I know.
Well, we had a roof, but it was just OSB board with tarp paper on top, not even shingles. No insulation. The back bedroom had full insulation in the roof and the walls, but we put an exterior door on the bedroom. It's actually still there now, Jeremiah. Next time you're over, look at the lock on the bedroom door. It's a like front door lock. Because that was our front door, because we had no door in the front of the house. And so that was in like mid-November. And so by the time that December hit and the cold temperatures actually got there, we were like stuffing towels under the bedroom door, because what was going to become the living room, like we were putting up the sheetrock and all out there, it was the outside temperature, because there was no front door. There was nothing, no insulation in the attic. Like the eaves were open. So I still remember, like, I think late December we got our stove. It was like around Black Friday. We had it shipped to a store for us. We put the stove in the kitchen before the counters were even in. And if we like went to cook soup or something, we'd like put on like a puffy jacket to leave the bedroom to go out and like make soup, because it was like 34 degrees in the kitchen. Anyway.
Dave, we need to do a casual conversation sometime about all the cheapskate shenanigans we've gotten up to. Because between the two of us, we have definitely had some. I could probably do a whole podcast just about the Tercel, that lovely turd.
I got the story of when we installed the gas fireplace over here, and we moved the propane tank from my grandma's house, because she had passed away and had like almost a full tank of gas, and we're like, we'll just pick up her contract, and we moved the tank on a trailer, like installed it ourselves, and then I called the gas company like, hey, can I activate this tank under my account? And they're like, sure. When do you want us to come move it? And I was like, so we already moved it. And they're like, did it have propane in it? And I was like, nah, it was pretty full. And she's like, okay, well, you're not supposed to do that, but we're just going to keep going. I was like, yeah, oh. Anyway.
So back to Grant's email. He says, you can imagine after 2 months in the camper how great it was to move into the house. How amazing it was to move into the house. Eventually, I got my PC set up from being in storage for 2 months, and it worked completely fine. So that's good. I was kind of expecting it not to turn on, because after listening to the tech podcast where you answer my questions, I did basically everything wrong. The storage unit was not climate controlled. I did not check for loose parts. I didn't air it out, and I accidentally left the power switch on the power supply. But everything ended out fine, thank goodness. And here I am today using my PC. I'm content with nothing to worry about. Anyway, I suppose that wraps up my long, drawn-out, possibly boring email. Thank you to the CSG crew for helping me, and don't put the motion slowing stopping mechanism on the Shenanigans train.
No, that was good, Grant. Thanks for sharing your story. I'm glad it worked out for you.
Now, I feel like we just have to say this. It worked for Grant, but to everybody else, listen to the advice we gave in the last podcast. The odds of something breaking are still low, but still take the precautions. Just do it anyway. But Grant, good luck to you. I fondly remember that old feeling of wanting to play around in the BIOS after you get your first build.
Oh yeah.
You actually can't do anything.
The fans are spinning. The fans are spinning.
And in the next podcast, Dave, remind me. Oh, I meant to talk about in the rig report. I resurrected an old Socket 775 build this week, and that actually had some funny stuff. But we can talk about that in the next
teaser
podcast.
for next time.
Ooh, it's already been right at an hour, so I think we'll go ahead and wrap this down now. Do you have anything else you want to talk about?
Nope. I gotta go paint some trim before I go to bed. Just living that, self-made life.
Sounds good.
Nope.
But until next time, guys, write into casualshenanigans@gmail.com to be a part of the show, or tweet at casualshenaniga. We're sorry we're getting back to some of your emails so late. We're trying to stay more on top of this, guys. Just thank you all for understanding that sometimes we can, sometimes we can't. We're doing our best, though. But thank you for all of your questions. Thank you for your feedback. Thank you for listening to the show, and we'll talk to you later.
See you guys.